while we're there and doing this cultural exchange, it's also about keeping everybody safe, taking everybody's interests into account, not just our own, because it'd be a very selfish way to exist in the world. We need to be able to have that sort of dialogue with our trading partners, with our allies, even with people the country considers their enemies, right? Which is why these languages are critical. That's why it's in the name.
You're listening to Speaking of Language, a podcast recorded at the Language Resource Center at Cornell University. Each week, we explore a topic related to language pedagogy and second language acquisition. This week on Speaking of Language,
Jack Brown discusses the Critical Language Scholarship Program and reasserts the importance of language study in creating a safer, more connected world.
Welcome to a new episode of Speaking of Language. I'm Angelica Kramer, the director of the Language Resource Center at Cornell University.
And I'm Sam Lupowitz, the LRC's media manager. We are delighted to welcome Jack Brown to our studio. Jack is a PhD student in the Department of Romance Studies here at Cornell and also serves as an Alumni Ambassador for the Critical Language Scholarship, which we will chat about today.
Welcome to Speaking of Language, Jack.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm super excited to talk about language in general.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, before we start getting into the specifics of the CLS and all the other things, let's talk about your background and path with languages. What does that look like?
Ooh, okay. Whenever I tell this story, people are always like, "What? Are you serious?" I'm from a really small town in rural Iowa, and normally our image of small towns in the Midwest are just like cultural monoliths. Everybody speaks English. There's no room for any other language. But my parents have worked at a meat processing plant for as long as for longer than I've been alive. And as a result, there are so many people from just everywhere.
Right.
There's language everywhere. I was checking the census data, and half of my town speaks Spanish, which makes sense. That's how I learned Spanish, because I grew up in that community. We always had classes from like preschool. A lot of my friends in elementary school spoke Spanish at home, and so that's kind of how I got it. I realized recently, I figured out the terminology for this, but my mom is a passive bilingual, and I had no idea. I went home for Christmas with my fiance, and we speak Spanish at home, and we were speaking to each other, and my mom's just chiming in English. I'm like, I didn't know she could do this.
Wow.
Yes, but other than Spanish, there are so many languages just floating around in the community. I also worked at the meat processing plant for a bit. And I had just this strange experience where I'd be interpreted for in Portuguese to people who didn't speak, I think somebody from Cameroon who only spoke French and another African language. And so another colleague would translate what he said in French to me in Portuguese. And there was just no English involved in the transaction. I was like, this is wonderful. There are not many places where this would be happening. And rural Iowa is not at all. It wouldn't be on my top 10 list of places.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yes, yeah.
Very cool. So, Jack, you participated in the Critical Language Scholarship Portuguese program last year in Brazil.
Yes.
What is CLS and what are its goals?
So CLS is a program funded by the U.S. Department of State that sends students from the U.S., both undergrads and graduate students, abroad for a summer. And for many students, it's their first time abroad. It's their first time interacting with the language, to take intensive language classes for 8 weeks. Classes are about 4 hours a day. And really just immerse in these environments for languages that, one, aren't commonly taught in the U.S., and two, are deemed critical to the interests of national defense,
right,
or economic interests, cultural interests.
What is a typical CLS day like?
So you wake up, eat breakfast with your host family. Well, in my program, there's host families. In some programs, they do, you stay in an apartment with a local student. So I would wake up, I'd eat breakfast with my host mom, and then I'd get up, walk to the university. My program was held at a local university, PUC-Rio. And then from 9 to 1, you're in class all day. There's a little break. So many different activities. Sometimes we leave campus and go do cultural activities like within the city. So the city kind of becomes your classroom. And then after that, you've got the day to yourself. But there's so much to do, especially in Rio, that I left with still a list of things I wanted to accomplish and wanted to see and do. but couldn't. There's just so much to do. Normally, you have meetings with language partners, which are local students who volunteer to show you around the city, get you immersed in like not just academic culture, but in youth culture. So you go explore the city that way. You can go. I spent a lot of time in bookstores because that's my personality.
Yeah.
There were people who went to the beach all of the time. And then, the day is yours. You really make what you want out of it according to your own interests, which is great about the program because it's got the really intensive part of it, but then there's so much room for exploration and for growth.
Nice. Yeah. That is amazing. So we recently heard of the devastating news of Department of Education-funded program eliminations that support language and culture programming. CLS was not part of that.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, indeed. But the programs that were formally ended included the National Resource Centers Program, Foreign Language and Area Studies Program, Undergraduate International Studies and Foreign Language Programs, International Research and Studies, Centers for International Business Education, American Overseas Research Centers, and also the National Language Resource Centers. The non-continuation notice these programs received stated that they are, quote, inconsistent with administration priorities and do not advance American interests or values, end quote. Needless to say, we wholeheartedly disagree with this statement and with these eliminations. In the words of a colleague and dear friend who is directly impacted by this, quote, and this is going to be a long quote, so bear with me here. These programs that are being cut are foundational for international education in the United States, which builds competencies critical to the American interests of national security and economic competitiveness. For example, it is vital to maintain the capacity of U.S. citizens learning a wide variety of languages with deep knowledge of different cultures. When international crises arise, the United States needs to have personnel with both language expertise and deep cultural knowledge ready to advise our leaders. Also, if the United States wants to continue to export goods to a global market, we need people who understand how to engage most effectively in each target country. Competency in a language and the ability to interact with others from other cultures with nuance does not happen overnight. Maintaining capacity in language learning is substantially more effective than eliminating programs and then reactively rebuilding when a need arises. This is the end of what my colleague wrote. Now, let me step back down from my soapbox. Jack, why are programs like CLS so important?
They're keeping Americans safe, not just at home, but abroad, right? When tourists are in other countries, the global image of Americans is so important to how we're treated abroad, how people perceive us. In the case of Brazil, I don't know if the two of you are up to date with what's going on with Brazil's politics and with tariffs right now. Just for the listeners, so Brazil recently voted to imprison their ex-president for an attempted coup. Thank goodness.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Right. And our current president is not very happy about that. And he's trying to impose tariffs on Brazil because of this decision that went, according to Brazilian law, it went down in the courts. It's perfectly legitimate within the context of Brazil. And he wants to mess with Brazil's sovereignty by imposing these tariffs to undo this decision because he and Bolsonaro were allies.
No.
But no, it's important that we're there, while we're there on the ground, to explain, no, this isn't the way that we see our allies. This isn't the way that we want the United States to intervene in Latin American politics in general. And I put an emphasis on Latin American politics because the U.S. has a very long history of intervention in Latin American politics that we need to be super vigilant in how we're carrying this all out. So while we're there and doing this cultural exchange, it's also about keeping everybody safe, taking everybody's interests into account, not just our own, because it'd be a very selfish way to exist in the world. You know? We need to be able to have that sort of dialogue with our trading partners, with our allies, even with people the country considers their enemies, right? Which is why these languages are critical. That's why it's in the name.
Right.
Thank you, both of you, for sharing that. I wholeheartedly agree. I have a lot of thoughts of my own, but I think perhaps we should move forward rather than listen to me share too many of those. I'm happy to talk to any of our listeners about it in further depth if anyone's interested. Jack, what do you do in your role as CLS program alumnus and ambassador? I know you have an info session coming up about the program, so we can talk about that as well.
Yes, so I do a lot of different things as part of the program. One of those roles is that I'm available to prospective applicants. You can see my beautiful face on the CLS website as an alumni ambassador, just for people to get in contact with me, to ask me questions, not only about the program itself, but about the application, because if you've never done an application like that, it can be challenging, especially if you're in your first few years of undergrad and you're like, I don't know what I want to do, much less how the language will connect to what I want to do with my career. The other part of it is just being a representative in general for the program. Over the summer, I participated in the Alumni Ambassador Forum in Washington, D.C. So we went to the State Department, and we went to various offices of senators and representatives to talk about the importance, not just of this specific program, but of international education in general. So it's putting a face to a program, right? When you're looking through for what to cut, you think, oh, I saw this person, I understood how it impacted their life. Maybe I would think twice about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then here on campus, I'm also here to spread the word about the program, get people aware of it. I was recently at Cornell's International Fair, and so many students were like, oh, I've never heard of this program. I'm like, this is perfect. It means I'm doing my job because I want more people to know about it. Yeah. It's a wonderful opportunity.
So is this only available to undergrads or also to graduate students?
Also to graduate students. Okay. I participated as a graduate student